All right, good afternoon. It is the final, well, maybe the final episode of the XC FLEXC. This is the assembly episode where we should, fingers crossed, get everything completed and put together. So, before I forget, make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow my Instagram, because we're going to be taking this thing all around Australia once it's built, and hopefully over to America one day. So definitely want to check that out. Now, we've got the motor sitting in here and the turbo's mocked up. I'm going to just throw everything on finger tight, just with a couple of bolts to get everything spaced properly with gaskets, so that I can finish the intake piping now that we have the manifold back and a couple of carbies from Holley. I'm going to go through that. We've got the Holley Sniper EFI system going in, but we'll talk about that when we actually install it. Let's get everything stacked up and finger tight, see how it looks. Let's rip into it. This is the vision. It is all together, and I think we've just got higher than the roof, which is sick. So this is pretty much how it's going to look. The last thing we need to do is intake. So it looks pretty simple. We'll just drill a 4-inch hole into that manifold we made, and then this will go straight onto the turbo outlet. Then a couple of blow-off valves, one each side, keeping symmetrical to the theme. I'm not sure whether we're going to add a silicone joint in this just because of the movement. We're going to weld it fully for now, and just fingers crossed that when we reassemble it, it'll go back in. But if we're going to be out by like 5 or 6 mil, then we'll probably have to just cut and join it just so we have that movement. But that's the last little bit, and then everything will be torn down, sent off to paint, and we're good to go. The other thing I need to do is just measure the blower belt. Now we've got the heights right, so I can order that, whack the tensioner on, and that's it. Looks freaking awesome. So we've ordered up that top manifold, and we're pretty much ready to pull everything down and take it off to paint. So we're going to go down to Jake from Mixed Image Customs, and I'm hoping, he actually did the glitter paint on my drift car, and I'm hoping he can do like a black with a red glitter to tie in with that chrome black and red theme. But since it's all sort of together, half assembled, I can't help myself. We're going to take this thing out of the shed and see what it looks like outside, give it a bit of a flex up, get some shots. So let's see how it looks. New X on me right. So I use my Red Arc Go Block as my power steering pump. So that's the idea of having hydraulic steering. So even when the car's off, you can still steer it just with a finger to get it on and off trailers, trucks, whatever, move it around. New X on me right. New X on me right. I might spin it, 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 Buy an island once I get the advance. Buy an island just to give me a 10. Count money with my feet in the sand. I do what I want, that's beyond what I can. Ay, windows tinted, can't see in it. In that brand new ride. Got no grilling, need no filling. On my Colgate smile. Heartbreaker, no, I leave them on red. Alrighty guys, we got the XC back in the shed here and the diffs rolled out. So big shout out to Big Mac actually for helping me move them quick smart. So I did that so I could lower the whole car down and actually get in the engine bay rather than having to work on a ladder. Now I want to talk about this later, but I might as well do it now, is the ignition timing and fuel system. I'll get some shots when we pull it apart, but we've essentially gone for the Holley Sniper EFI system. Now it's pretty bloody mind-blowing when I started looking into this. It's a carburetor that has an ECU built inside of it.
It's literally got a computer in the carby. It looks old school, but it operates like a modern fuel injection system. So the reason I went with this is it's so easy and basic to set up, but it has all the tuning functionality that you would have for a normal like EFI engine. I've gone for the twin carby setup just to suit that blower, and it's kind of a look thing to just kind of make that all make sense. So you can essentially plug it in, set the timing, how many cylinders, where you want your RPM at idle to sit, where you want your target AR ratio to be. Distributor wise, it was super cheap just to throw this in as well. Rather than dealing with a mechanical or vacuum distributor, this is literally goes in the same position, drops straight into the factory spot, but it hooks up to this whole ECU system. You can actually control your timing, advance and retardation with the ECU and the computer that's involved there. So I'll be able to tune this thing really easy. The idle speed will be sorted. It's already got vacuum there for brake booster, all that kind of stuff. And being fuel injected, you're not gonna have flooding issues. You literally start it up. It has fuel pump output as well, so it'll prime the pump. You're on a high pressure pump, so you run it at 60 pound in through a regulator, and yeah, that easy. So it's something I'm way more comfortable and familiar with, rather than dealing with carburetors and idle screws and all that crap that I kind of missed out on because I was born in the 90s. So I'm playing around with the wiring with that at the moment, but I'll show you those parts when we pull it down, and then once it gets reassembled after paint, we'll really dig into how it's all set up. But it's looking pretty simple so far.
Got a hold on me, you can tell by the way I'm talking. I see they got a hold on you, I can tell by the way.
What do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, mate, I like it.
Are you still like
this one next? Yeah, I'm stealing this one next.
We got the lights on. Come and have a look at the tail lights, because Mitch hooked one up backwards. So actually these started together, but if you look that side, one light is flashing the other way.
I said it's the length of the cable, like you gotta make sure the roof.
Here's our list that we started this morning. We started this list, and it's like, we've literally smashed off half of it.
It's getting high, mama.
Okay, in the last episode, or maybe it was one before, I spoke about how I was gonna engrave the rims, and holy, it is one of those jobs you need patience for, which I don't have, but check this out. I had a crack last night and we got some engraving on there. Used a little stencil and it's come out all right. So what I figured out with my cheap eBay engraver, we're basically gone through the clear coat or part of the powder coating to give like this matte finish. Now normally, proper engraving, you go down to the aluminium, which is what I tried here, but I kind of like the look of the matte, and it literally takes half the amount of time as the alley. And once you go down to alley, it exposes a lot of the different angles that you're using as you're cutting through. You got to keep very consistent. Whereas on the black, you can kind of just shade in different directions to cut it out, and it just looks more uniform. So we're going to start with that and see how it looks fully done. It literally took me probably 4 hours last night to write built and the mullet guy. So it's something I'm doing in the background, but that's how it's coming out. Just a little bit of extra flavor and taste for this car. And yeah, that's what I'm kind of working on at the moment. So you haven't seen much progress on the actual car. That's probably why. Wiring's pretty much complete. We have the grill on, all the lights work. Most of the wiring's mocked up to the point when we pull this off for paint, everything can go back on and be reassembled straight away. We've got the NOS solenoid, which is ready for the squirters of fuel going into the exhaust pipe to shoot the flames. So that's sorted. Done our throttle linkage, got a spring on there. I'm just waiting for a left-hand tap to thread this bar here, and that'll finish that off. One of those little things where it's like the last 10% of a build just takes ages. Here's our list, which we've literally smashed out in 2 days. 2 days ago, that was a complete list with nothing crossed off. In the last 2 days, we've pretty much banged off most of it. So we're waiting on some parts, waiting on a radiator, waiting on some brake parts, so getting through it. Alrighty, 2 things have arrived that I've been waiting on. Number 1 is the radiator. So we actually did order a patrol one initially, but it was too wide to fit inside the rails. This one actually sits a lot deeper. The other one was like all the way up here. So I've got to make some mounts with this. Believe it or not, this is actually off the good old AU Falcon. The old, believe it or not, part of an AU Falcon's on this car. It has 0 mounts on it, so I'm gonna have to TIG weld a couple of alley like pins on the bottom, and we'll just slot it into a couple of holes. On the top, we'll do the same, a little pin where we can have a bracket that comes out to meet with the body. That'll all sit rubber mounted. The other thing that arrived was the blower belt, which was a bit of mucking around trying to get the right length, but it's pretty much, you want about 1 inch of flex on this side here. So it's pretty much worked well with that tensioner. It's like a tiny bit, almost too big. I mean, that tensioner is almost maxed out, but I think it's gonna work fine. So that's ticked off the list. Let's get this radiator mounted, and then the front end can pretty much be on for good. Okay, the goods have arrived. The bits I've been waiting on to pretty much finish what I need to do here so we can pull it apart and get it off the paint. Now, that was the connectors from Raceworks. Actually, big shout out to Jamie and Scott from Raceworks. They've been on the ball with this build. Everything I've ordered, they've literally got it to me the next day or the day after, like 2 days, everything arrives. So these connectors are amazing. They are what I use on the drift car. Anything boosted, I'd go for these. So they have a full clamp design, like they cannot come undone. But inside here, there's 2 sets of O-rings, and it gives you the ability to give it a little bit of movement. So rather than having like a silicone join where they can blow off, looks shit, these have a similar amount of movement if something like a turbo or motor is slightly not connected, or there's rubber mounts and there's a bit of oscillation in there. This allows for some of that movement. So we're using these to join up those intake pipes. They're made out of alley, I can weld straight to that. The tricky thing for me is to try and get it pretty much tacked on the car, so when I pull it off to fully weld, it's gonna be in the right position. So that's what I'm gonna do now. This side's not too bad. This one is a little more offset, so that's gonna be a little bit more tricky, but we'll get this one tacked up and welded, and then challenge the other one. We should be done. Okay, now with this radiator, there's a couple of things that we need to do. There's one thing I've already done. Well, we've obviously made the mounts, but I've also welded in a bung here for the temperature sensor just above the inlet, so that's when the hot water goes in. That one is for the ECU, that's in the carbies. We're also running a secondary water temp sensor as well that runs up to the gauges. The other thing I want to change, I was going to do this on the outlet, but it's going to work well with just that normal flare fitting. But for the inlet, we're going to change it for a welded dash 16, I think this is, AN fitting. So we'll cut this old barb off and weld this on, and that means we can use a fully crimped Raceworks fitting because it needs to go to a Y piece to split to each side of the head. And then the other thing is just to make a shroud. We'll design that up on the on Fusion, cut it out on the plasma, and then mount it, and it'll help get that fan spaced out a little bit, create a bit of a vacuum for the thermo to mount to, and then the whole radiator can drop in. Well, we just had a special delivery. Jake has outdone himself again. Behind me is all the intake stuff that I sent off for paint. Now, you may think it just looks black, and that's what I wanted. I want it to look black normally, but I've got a part outside and in the sun, the red glitter in this thing is absolutely crazy. Now, it is still hard to see on camera, but the red in real life absolutely pops in the sun. That's what I wanted, subtle. He also did my drift car, so he's the one that did all the glitter stuff on the drift car with the intake manifolds. That is what he's good at. He loves that kind of stuff, getting intricate detail and pretty much making something absolutely pop. So now all this intake stuff can go on for the final time, get it all properly bolted on. I'm gonna do the manifold first, get those bolts on, and then we can start looking at setting up this distributor to get the timing right for this Holley setup.
New X, new X, new X, new X, new X on me right. I might spin it, 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 buy an island once I get the advance, buy an island just to give me.
A few moments later.
I've been tearing my hair out. I'm absolutely tearing my hair out because the manifold has miraculously shrunk or something, I don't know. I don't think it was powder coat that they put on, but we test fitted this so many times and I've put it on and the bolts towards the front are like out by 5 mil. So I've sent one bolt in bloody crooked cross-threaded. There's one that I've had to kind of hollow out a bit with a drill, and then there's one more that I can't get in, and it's not pulling down flat. Like there's at the front, the gasket still has a bit of movement, which means the back's pulled down but the front's lifted a little bit. Anyway, absolute headache with the manifold. So I'm gonna circulate the water, see if there's leaks. I've tried to add a bit of gasket goo to stop that leaking. But it's just one of those things when you're making your own manifold out of aluminium, things can warp, twist, heat, all the welding it's had, and putting the paint on and getting baked on. It's just, it's tricky. It's a hard thing to do. That's why I got the pros to do it and not me, but it's still not perfect. We're gonna move on just quickly with the Holley stuff. Before I go and put all the blower and turbos on that are in the way, I'm gonna set the distributor. Now this is the dual spark Dizzy from Holley. Now, very easy to set up. Normally you have to use a timing light, get all this and that. This has digital LED lights and an internal crank and cam home sensor. You don't have to add in a home sensor on the crank and then one for the cam. It's all built in. But you need to set, for some reason, you need to set your crank at 50 degrees before top dead center. So what I did, went onto the instructions. It's got an 8-inch diameter flywheel, and what you can do is actually get a measurement on a piece of tape, set the distance that you want, and then stick that on the balancer, and that'll give you the exact angle of 50 degrees for that diameter of balancer. Spin the motor to that, and then we drop this in and basically rotate it just until the light turns on, and that's when the cam sensor is igniting, and that'll be close enough to start it, and then the ECU will just set the timing automatically in here to get it perfect. So we want to whack this Dizzy and set that up. Circulate oil as well. We'll build oil pressure, get the radiator in, circulate water, and then we can add all the other stuff on. Hopefully there's no leaks. If there is, we'll try double stacking gaskets. I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out when we get to it, but let's move along. All right, well, I think it's pretty much time to fire it up for the first time in this kind of setup with the blower, with the turbos, everything. But for this, I'm gonna leave the turbos actually disconnected, so I won't be getting any boost. It'll still be spinning the turbos, circulating oil and everything, but it'll only be getting boost from the blower, just so it doesn't mess with the MAF sensor inside the carby. So with the Holley, I did go through and set up all the tuning and all that system. It was pretty basic. You put in your target idle speed, your air-fuel ratio. It just goes through a bunch of prompts, how many cylinders, how many cubes, all that kind of stuff. And the wideband sensor on the exhaust will actually calculate everything for you. So with the Holley kit, it actually came with its own wideband that goes on one side of the exhaust, measures that temp of the air fuel coming out to make sure that the ratio is correct. So I'll leave these facing down for now. The last thing to do is just hook that up onto here, but I just want to see if it runs. So obviously there's no radiator, there's no coolant or anything, so we're only going to get a few seconds on it, but I just want to make sure that it fires over so that all the wiring, the injection system, the fuel pump, all that's working properly, and make sure that we're still getting oil pressure now that we've added all those turbo lines and everything. So fingers crossed, let's go. that was hectic. I had to run out the shed for a bit and let all the fumes disappear because it was so damn hectic. So it fired up second attempt. Now, one thing I noticed was the idle was pretty high, and I think I figured out why. The same reason actually when we tried to start it on the ground was the vacuum lines were still open. I've got a few barbs coming off the manifold there for the wastegates and a boost reference pressure line to go to the carbon. Now that wasn't hooked up, which might not help the ratio, so I don't think it's like getting the right amount of fuel. It's getting way too much air. So we're gonna fix those few little things, get the turbos hooked up. But we'll save that for next episode. We're gonna get the diffs rolled under it. And next time we do a video on the XC, I promise it'll be leaving the shed. We should be able to make this thing drive under its own power. We'll take it somewhere and get some shots. And I have set up the fuel system to shoot the flames. Now I think one of the boys filmed today and got a screenshot of it shooting its own flame already, but we are adding fuel into the exhaust and a spark plug. So through a NOS system, it should make like 4 or 5 foot flames. It should be absolutely hectic. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the XC build, and if you want to see it for the first time, it will be the Brisbane 4-wheel drive show happening next weekend, I'm pretty sure, when you're watching this. So 17th of March, use code BNB. I'll put a link down below for the website. Grab your tickets to ensure that you can come and see this thing. We'll be on the stand Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So come down and check it out. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching.